Hello and welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. So, Graham, quite a number of episodes ago, we talked about fractional sales. But our guest that day was from the United States.
Yeah.
Be good if we brought that subject a whole load nearer home and talk about fractional sales in Yorkshire.
Well, the thing is, I know this chap, and we've known him for 20 odd years, and basically he's the real deal when it comes to sales. So what Kirk Dobie will be sharing with us today is going to be worth listening to. So Kirk, welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you both.
Now, you asked us not to talk about football, so we'll not mention that England are in the final of the Euros.
And by the time this episode goes out, we'll have lost the final.
Yeah, well,
Football won't have come home again.
Well, we never know. It was a valiant, effort from Scotland, but I don't know, just it didn't seem to work out for you, so bit of a shame.
Well, as ever, we get the sticky group, don't we? And the dodgy half of the draw. So
yeah, well, you can't win really with that. And I think anyone would have suffered in that group. So, but at least you qualified, and that's a step forward.
Yeah,
so
that's a big step forward.
Yeah, you probably, I don't know, I probably told you this back in the day, but basically I'm a half Scot. So when I was a kid, England versus Scotland, who do you support? Do you support England, your dad, or Scotland, your mum? I mean, what do you do at that age? And then, of course, once you get beyond, I don't know, 8 or something like that, you think, oh, sod that, English. So so it became more sort of evenly spread. But anyway, what can I say? Kirk, You've had a number of sales jobs over the years, and effectively you've done all kinds of things in sales. And I've always known you to be a fantastic sales leader. But now you've got this company called KPD3 Fractional Sales Consultancy. Tell us more.
Right. So I'll explain the name first of all, and part of it's quite straightforward because Patrick being my middle name, which I'm not sure you knew.
I did.
So that was KPD. And then the 3-bit was 20 odd years ago when I got my first AOL account. I wanted Kirk Dobie at AOL.com. And he said, you can't have that. You can't have two. Sorry, you can't have number 1. You can't have number 2, but you can have Kirk Dobie 3 at AOL.com. So that idea of KPD3 has always stuck in my head. Mm. And even I've got ready-made baked email address to use. Mm. So that's the long and the short of it. It isn't any more complex than that. But to explain what I've been doing and what fractional sales leadership is all about, it's partly because, just to paint the picture, as you very kindly mentioned, I was an experienced man and boy, met you and a bunch of others at Equifax, and then moved on to the 3rd CRA at that time at Call Credit, managed GMAP. And I've done a few things since then, but over the last 7 years, I've been working on some form of contract basis for clients. And I'm not sure whether it's because I get bored easily, or I'm always looking for different challenges, or I want to keep my work-life balance. But I've decided that that's what I want to do for a few more years. And I got interested in, I got talking to a lady a few years back who described herself as a fractional finance officer, I think she was. And she explained what it was. And I thought, well, that's the kind of lifestyle I want. And it's not that I'm lazy, but I quite enjoy the work-life balance side, which to me says don't work more than 3 days a week. Mm. The challenge being with fractional, you can actually work 1 day a week for a company, have all the excitement of that, and work the next, and feel that you're really making a difference in 3 organizations at the same time. And through that, I've kind of worked out a rule of thumb by which my old experience that you'll recall is when you wanted to bring somebody senior in sales into the organization, number 1, it took forever. Mm-hmm. Number 2, it was very risky. You were always trying to poach a competitor's best salesperson, and you often had to make them or give them some vanity title to come over. I thought, and they say that's risk side of it was often too much. So the sort of fractional proposition is really that it's cost effective. Because if you want to bring somebody in full time with all the overheads and benefits and what have you, it's quite an investment.
Mm.
So it's very cost effective to do that. You can also do it very flexibly. You can do it by the day. You can do it interim, short term, with a view to it being longer term. So it's not like buying a footballer where you have to sign a long term deal with them in effect. You get somebody who is more experienced, or you can afford somebody who's more experienced. In other words, you can get what I say, you get access to a senior when you've got the budget for a junior, which is all sorts of benefits. It's also faster to get a benefit back, faster to get a return.
Yeah.
Bring somebody in who's quite new to the organization or new to working with certain types of people or in a particular type of marketplace. You're wondering if it's going to work out, but you know very quickly, is that person going to fit? Is that person creating a benefit? And you probably know after meeting one, are you both right for each other? And are people benefiting from that person, like myself being in the organization? The other thing that somebody who's more senior comes with is leadership skills, mentoring skills, able to spot in a group of 10 people who needs support, who's struggling, even if it's on a Zoom call. Out of the 10 boxes, who do you need to spend some time on? Who's speaking too much? Who isn't saying enough? Even when you can't judge the body language that well. So that's as I say, it's mentoring, which is, I think, part of leadership skills come through. The other thing is the person who's fractional person you want in your organization a day a week. It's often very well networked, very well connected. They know a person who, or they know somebody at an organization. They can introduce you. Their LinkedIn, to look at socials. Their LinkedIn has often got many thousands of people in it. And in there, it's friends upon friends and contacts among contacts. And often you know somebody at an organization that they've been dying to get into. They know how to do complex sales, the consultative selling. They've been through the process. They know what works and what doesn't.
Mm.
It's also faster to implement. So you could literally put your net out and get somebody in a few weeks. If you wanted to go to market and hire a sales director and work with recruitment organizations, you're probably looking at a couple of months before you've narrowed it down, and then you might have 3 months before they can join you. You've wasted 5 months.
Okay.
You can get somebody very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know the biggest thing? I've given you a few reasons there. The absolutely biggest benefit is you would bring a fractional person in when you've lost your sales director or you've lost your sales leader. So the absolute biggest benefit is you haven't diverted the attention of your very best salesperson, who's often the person who wants the gig, is probably the worst person in the organization to do that, and will probably get fed up and leave because they're not succeeding. So you take all of that out of the equation, you get people doing what they're best at, you bring somebody in to even help them do even more and keep them in the organization, but you're not diverting that person from doing what they're doing.
I think Kevin will love you already because you've just given a brilliant... if you took out sales in every one of those reasons and put in finance, more or less, and it fits, doesn't it?
It does. And Kirk started off by mentioning that he'd met a fractional CFO.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we, in my day job, deal with a lot of those folk as members of Grow CFO. And it's a great model. And I actually interviewed, must be about 12 months ago now, for my other podcast, a fractional CFO who'd written a book, How to Become a Fractional CFO. And we had an absolutely fascinating conversation, not so much about the benefits of of what a fractional gives to the business. But hey, you want to become a fractional CFO. Here are all the issues you're going to come across. Here are all the skills that you've probably now got to learn, because just doing a CFO's job, you didn't need all these marketing skills before. You didn't need this network that was going to get you the next gig. I find the whole fractional world absolutely fascinating, Kirk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also it's a fit with new trends and new ways of working, because I think the only benefit that COVID brought us was our ability to use Zoom like we are now, or Teams, because 5 years ago we probably would have got together to do this.
Yeah.
But it's much more acceptable and almost universally used now in most businesses, that and in our personal lives, that we use Zoom call or team call. So that fits in with fractional as well, because if a business, I could be working for a company in another part of the world and still put a shift in, put in my 8 or 10 hour day, and not have to leave this pod in the back garden. So that's a big tick.
Yeah, your range of opportunities is wider. I mean, if they're based in Norwich and you're in West Yorkshire at the moment, it's a bit of a trek. And so, you might have to go once, but you don't have to go every time. So right. One thing about what you've just highlighted is that I'm thinking, okay, Kirk's working a day with this outfit and it's Monday. And I know that Kirk's not working on Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. But I've got this thing that I want to send him. If only he'd just have a look at this for us. Does that happen?
Yeah, all the time.
And how can you possibly deal with it?
I think you have to. You just find time. Mm-hmm. My phone is never off to any person that I'm dealing with, any organization. I've done a few calls at the weekends just to catch up, even if it's a 5-minute call. It can be very, very important for somebody. Yeah. I've talked people out of leaving an organization over just with a couple of calls at the weekend.
Yeah,
and I think it's part of the process. It's part of the model itself, that you are still available even when you're not in the building.
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently doing some consulting for a firm, and they're paying me for particular days. So I go to see them, but then I'll get this sneaky little sneaky little request to do something, and I'm thinking, but I'm a bit like you. I'll deal with it, but I do try and bat it back a little bit, because basically I'm going to deal with that when I come to see you, because I think your time is important. But I do understand you're putting yourself into a position where you have 3 of these people potentially, all of them giving you, by the way, I know Kirk's he's working on Tuesday, but I saw him on Monday. So basically you could have calls from another 2 companies on their Tuesday because you're not there with them. It must be quite challenging.
I leave quite a clear message on my phone every day when people can speak to me. And I tell people when's good and when's not good time to call. Leave a text message, when's a good time. It's doable.
Okay.
It really is. It's doable.
But you're selling time, aren't you?
Yes. It's a combination of my time, but also in some instances it's where there's a purpose or a target.
Yeah.
So working towards both of them. But right. I never believed in my working career that you started at 9 and finished at 5:30. It's never about that.
No, but what I'm trying to say is that you couldn't take on 50 clients.
No. Well, I don't want to, those core days, I wouldn't want those core days to be more than 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So that there's space for my work-life balancing act either side of that.
Yeah.
And if something crops up, I can, be available.
Yeah.
Which is a very attractive proposition. I imagine there's probably half of our audience thinking, oh, I like the sound of this fractional thing. That sounds like the way that I'd like to step out and kind of run my own business. And be another half of our audience that says, oh, I've heard of fractionals in some roles before, but I've never thought of having a fractional salesperson. Perhaps that can be an advantage to me. So I can see this conversation kind of can go in two directions, Kirk. I think we've covered kind of the benefits of having a fractional salesperson, but if you're in that first group and think, oh, being fractional, that sounds right for me. How do you get into this in the first place? Because you don't just suddenly say one day, I'm now a fractional salesperson. You've got to go find 2-3 clients. You're not looking for one role, you're probably looking for 3 or 4 roles. How do you actually go about acquiring those clients?
I've been quite lucky that people have come to me. I think part of it is I put a post, a LinkedIn post, back a couple of, few months ago. And even, sorry, just to step back, over the last 7 years or so, I've never had a stop in between. I've always been speaking to people around and about during those periods. But I find things like LinkedIn, being able to put something up the flagpole and get tremendous response from it. I think partly it's to do with, it's a numbers game. I think on social media, especially on LinkedIn, the more people you have, the more people who are going to see a post. I think the fractional ethos is getting out there. I don't think it's particularly well known. I think you're absolutely right. It's more, it seems to be more suited to finance than sales leadership at the moment. But I think that'll change. But I think you need to put the hours in, put the years in, and get the experience where you're able to be comfortable going into an organization, summing up, finding out, almost like a doctor, asking where it hurts and realizing what's wrong.
You really like being involved though, and I get the fact that you're actually doing the thing you love, which is you've always been there in the thick of it. The guy that we had, it was only a couple of months ago, Mike Malloy from America. He basically runs a fractional sales company, so he has a bunch of people who basically go out and be fractional with others. And his niche is the business to business SaaS tech company market. So he's first of all, it's not very well populated in the world, fractional sales, and he's niched down to B2B SaaS tech companies. So you're thinking, here's Kirk. Am I going to be almost right by thinking the companies that you're working with, there's some data relatability, or is it none of them? Are you niching yourself to places that you've been to, so your experience, or have you said, no, I'm going to leap into sales, whatever it is, I don't care what it is? So give us an idea of the kind of clients that you're working with.
Yeah. So say over the last 7 years, where I've been doing it almost on a fractional basis, but not quite. That was very data orientated.
Yeah.
And it's even with the trade association. Yeah. Being quite involved in the data and marketing side of things. Yeah. And data and marketing companies. But my latest client I've taken on is a property company. The challenges are all, I think the challenges are all the same. And as long as you've got the bandwidth to accept and understand and appreciate the value proposition, or getting them to present and understand the value proposition, once you're there, everything else is the same. Yeah. It's all the same challenges. Are you organized to sell? Do you have the right processes in place? Let's talk about your people. Let's talk about your technology.
Yeah.
Is it all working together? What's the engagement like between your sales and your marketing people? What about your delivery people? Are you all singing the same tune? And normally, by the time you've asked those questions, you get a litany of issues tipped onto the table.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it doesn't really matter what you're selling. Slightly different B2B, B2C, I would say. But where there's a value proposition which requires delivery by other people, it's pretty straightforward across various industry sectors.
Now, I can see here, Graham, quite a contrast between what Kirk does and what Mike Malloy's people are doing. Mike Malloy is effectively employing salesmen who are working on a fractional basis, but actually going out and selling stuff. What you're describing, Kirk, sounds to me much more like a consultant coming in, looking at the sales process, the way things hang together, the sales team, and possibly putting together significant change in the organization.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not there to sell anything. That would be self-defeating. I have to go through the process of understanding how things are being sold, whether it's about prospecting methods and emails and how people follow up the prospecting activity, call scripts, brochures, proposals, presentations, you name it. I go through all of that in role play it. So I've done that previously, but I veer a step back from the sharp end of actually talking to clients. I think my role is very much about getting them to do it better and doing prospect journeys, customer journeys, understanding customer experience. I've asked companies, can you just show me your customer satisfaction scores? And I've had a blank look. So it's bringing all those pieces of data that are in an organization together and putting it on the table and having my own view of the business itself, and just like fettling an old car, making it run better.
Who do you replace when you get there?
I've replaced one occasion replaced a sales director who went to a competitor. One occasion I was brought in because two salespeople left over one weekend. And it was kind of the bat signal was put up by the organization to say help, and got one of them back, which was good. But on that basis, it was I think the reasons why you'd call upon a fractional consultant to help you can just be everyone's in play. Haven't lost anyone. We're just missing our numbers. And when you're missing your numbers and you don't know why,
and is it something, Kirk, that you can you actually reverse that? I mean, is that there? I mean, you're going to work for the board somehow, somewhere, somebody on the board, and so basically you come in and there's an expectation that this guy, all this experience, you're probably not going to sign a contract that says I will turn it all around and make you X million. You're not going to do that, but you are going to do everything that you're capable of doing to give them a fair chance. Is that the kind of approach that you take to give them that chance of success, or are you signing up to achieve success?
The steps I take is to have an initial call. So we have an initial, I say 10, 15, 20-minute call. It can be an hour's call.
Yeah. And
that at that part, I want to know, it sounds a bit selfish, but do I want to work with this company? Yeah. Does my experience fit? Find out what the issues are. Do I think they're reversible? And from that initial conversation, I then would go to meet the person, or in some cases the board, in situ, and explain how I go about things. Understanding where I've been in the past is a bit of can be a comfort blanket. But at the same time, I want to hear from those people what they think the issues are. Yeah. And from that, that's my time I'm spending. And if by the end of that, it doesn't feel like a good fit, I've walked away.
Yeah.
But if I do feel it's working in both ways, then first step is a workshop where I get all the different elements and spend the day in the organisation from 8 till 8 or whenever it is, finding out what all the challenges are, and then come up with a plan quite quickly, what to do over the next 4 or 5 days, and from there we carry on. They're all different. They're all different. Some people want you in the office. Some sales teams are scattered across the country.
Yeah.
Best places like this on a Zoom call.
So, what was interesting to me when I read your website was that you've trained over 1,000 salespeople. That must have been hard work. I've probably one of them, actually, thinking about it. Revenue generated 100 million plus, which is pretty impressive, and 20,000 customers generated. So presumably this is almost like a career estimation, but
yes,
and that's reasonable. But that's you.
That's right.
Credential.
That's right. Yeah, when I started working it out, I was typing up on an Excel spreadsheet for quite some time over the years, working out numbers involved, people involved, clients involved, and it's pretty much those numbers, which surprised me at the end of it, to be honest.
It doesn't me, because you've been pretty consistently in sales as long as I've known you, and I know it's got a fancy title of consultant and so forth, and I know that you're not at the front line, but that's kind of irrelevant. You're helping people be better salespeople, and I think so. Somehow people find you. When I'm sort of, I've got this issue, like you said, they've sent up a flare, that something's going wrong on a weekend or whatever it was, and they had a problem. What did they search? Because they might not know you directly, but what did they search to find you? How did they find you? Is it just fractional sales? Or is that word in their mind, or is it just, oh, you should speak to Kirk because they've got a friend who knows you? How does it work?
They spotted me all on LinkedIn. I think a few months ago I said, "Thank you, LinkedIn, first client." It was literally like that. Yeah. Right. But another thing which is part of this is to think more deeply about mental health issues. That because I think home working, or the way in which salespeople are now being asked to work. You can have your first sales meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. Your last one at 5:30 in the day. Meetings are booked by Calendly or other such tools. And I think there's lots of positives with that. You can have a much longer day, you're less time on the motorway. So there's much more time to prepare, much more opportunity to learn if you've got the right mindset. But at the same time, you're missing the coffee machine conversations. You're missing hearing people pitch in the office. You're missing all the buzz that I grew up with in any organization I was in. You missed all of the general chatter around what was going on and everything else.
To be honest with you, Kirk, people should get back to the office. I think that's really important. We had some fun times there, and maybe some challenging ones as well. But at least you had this sort of camaraderie, and there was something about that. It'll come back probably, might not, but
we've been with my other half. We run courses on lack of salespeople suffering from say things like lack of self-confidence, suffering from procrastination, fear of failure, bad negative self-talk, bad attitudes, all those sorts of things. all of those things, I think there's a real issue, not just in terms of salespeople, with mental health, and organisations need to be very interested in how their people are feeling, and to make sure that the manager's toolkit involves not just the odd one-to-one chat every quarter, but a much more serious conversation, face to face, not over a Zoom call, to find out how they're actually doing.
You're talking Kevin's sort of woo-woo language now. I mean, Kevin's really into this ESG woo-woo stuff, and
none of this is woo-woo ESG. This is just dealing with people as real people.
Oh, I know.
And realizing they're individuals. They have life outside work. They have personal issues. I'd say it's a very, very simple formula that I learned from a business coach a long while ago. And it is quite simply P equals P minus I. Okay? Performance equals potential minus interference. Your job as a manager of all your people to get them to perform to the best of their ability. They should all have potential, because you wouldn't have recruited them if they didn't. Your job as a manager is to make the minus I bit as small as possible. Get rid of the interference.
Yeah.
Okay? So if that interference is something's going on at home that's stopping them working properly, some sort of mental health issue you need to help them get to the bottom of, that's your job as a manager to sort that out.
Yeah, bless them with all these issues in their head. I mean, crikey, I don't know how we manage, Kirk. I mean, how do we get through the day? I mean, I don't know. I do think it's been overplayed. Having said that, I'm not denying it happens, but I think you clearly have got solutions for that. So that's interesting. But what I want to know is those extra couple of days that you're not really work. You got a life. Are you still scamming all these seniors golf tours then? Because you're quite a good golfer, aren't you? I mean, you're better than Joe Biden. Let's face it. I mean, even I'm better than Joe Biden. But
Joe Biden's probably forgotten which end of the golf club to hold.
Well, so have I. But no, but Kurt, you're a brilliant golfer. I mean, do you still play?
I still play. Yeah, I still getting the ball around. Not anywhere close to how I would like to hit it, but yeah, still playing.
So you are ripping people off on a Thursday and a Friday. If you ever, so anybody listening to this who wants a ringer, then for a golf tournament,
a golf day ringer, yeah. I'll throw my hat in the ring, yeah.
Yeah, because you kind of look like somebody who might have a sort of a 28 and and there you are, and bang, are you still on about, what is it, 4 or something like that?
I'm closer to 6.
Are you? Oh, blimey! Because
Biden a lot better than you or I, Graham.
Well, Biden claimed that he was on 6, and then within the same sentence he said, "Well, 8," and then nobody believes him.
I didn't believe anything that was said in that.
No. Well, no, I shouldn't mention it, should I? But okay, so this work-life thing, then let's just think less about the time that you're at work and when you're doing the life thing.
Yeah.
What's important to you to balance that?
Yeah, two things. It was interesting. Kevin mentioned the chap who's writing a book. I'm actually writing a book on all of this. Good. To get it all out of my head as much as possible and down on paper. So that's a piece of work that I'm chiseling away at.
Well, we love interviewing authors, don't we, Graham? So we'll have to have Kirk back at the point that
we do
published.
It's the best thing you can do. I mean, absolutely one of the best strategies you can do. We not too long ago we had Stuart Gray on. Sorry, I call him Stuart Gray. Stuart Bell on from 90 Minute Books, and Stuart runs that company along with, you might remember his name, but it's Dean Jackson, who's the guy who invented the landing page. He's the guy who invented the 9-word email, which is unbelievably good for resurrecting lapsed emails. But basically, Dean's an unbelievable marketer, but one of his companies is 90 Minute Books. So you'd spend 90 minutes with a person at the other end of the phone. They get the outline of your book. You probably share a bit more information with them, and bingo, they'll write the book for you. Now it costs you, I think he said, about between $2,000 and $3,000, which isn't an awful lot, but basically it's done 90 minutes of your time, not 3 years, not 2 years. And you might think, well, is it worth? But then you get this book. Now, then you can get it produced and shared and all the rest of that. And I think it's something that, from my point of view, my clients, it's a must. They should have something like that.
Yeah, a lot of the information that I use in my day to day is something that came out of creating the initial steps of the book.
You're right.
And it's something I've been writing for about 6 months.
Okay.
But I'm going to see that through. I've looked at AI tools that you can give a brief to, and it comes back with something very formulaic.
Be careful.
I end up tearing them up and putting them in the bin.
You'll end up with the word elevate in there for 1,000 versions of elevate, and it just anything you're looking at, and you can see it in people's work on billboards or whatever. Elevate's everywhere. And I'd said to somebody this morning on an email, I said, I'd rather support Man United than use Elevate in anything that I produce. But I think it's just one of those things. I don't know why it does it, but it's just somebody once explained, not recently, somebody explained to me that AI is lazy. So basically, it will go out and get you back a whole bunch of, and it's brilliant at persuading you it's the right thing. But you look at it and think, this is rubbish. Do it again. And that's how you have to treat it. You have to treat it like a subservient slave almost. No, that's not good enough. Do it again. And then it'll say, oh, I'm really sorry about that. And it does it again. And after about a third or fourth time, you might have something worth using.
Do you know what? I lost a lot of faith in AI generally because I typed in my name, date of birth, place of birth, and said, tell me about this person. And then AI came back and said that I'd played football for Scotland. As bizarre as that sounds. And it went through it said I played for Glasgow Celtic, and then I went on to play football for Scotland.
Oh, amazing.
So that's amazing. To me, that's the back of my mind when I use AI for anything.
I just wondered what happened to you in your 20s and early 30s, though, Kirk. I mean, I don't know what happened in your life. You weren't playing golf, so it might have been true. No, it's just cobblers at most. It hallucinates, and
it does. It's great at telling you stuff where it knows what the answer is, but when it can't find an answer, it makes stuff up.
It does. Yeah, absolutely.
Having said that, if you can get something that has a huge amount of training, so it's trained. So in other words, the creation, the actual, shall we say, the way in which it interacts with AI is based on a lot of evidence and a lot of sort of things that have really happened, and it can work really well. In fact, I know it works very well. So, but more about that on another.
In terms of writing something, where I find AI really useful. Say you've got some PowerPoint slides that have got a load of bullet points on. You've used them in the classroom to teach something. Now you start feeding the questions into AI at that level of detail and ask it to write something about all of those bullet points. Because you've been so prescriptive in what you've asked it, the answer that comes back is usually pretty good, and is a downside easier than you sitting down and saying, now I've got to write a course to deliver online.
Yeah.
And the way I used to present it by just talking to this slide, AI saves you a lot of effort.
It's the future, and there's no question that we're sub 2 years in terms of it's been available generally, and you think, crikey, what's it going to be like in 5 years? What's it going to be like in 10 years?
Yeah.
It's going to go away.
Actually, a friend of mine, Adam Shilton, who writes a lot about AI in finance, gave a great quote that says, AI will never be as bad as it is today.
No, well, I mean, I'm involved with an AI called MechLabs AI, and I'm an authorized reseller for MechLabs AI, and that's based on 10,000 experiments. Back in the day, Kurt, when we were working together, one of the things I was looking at the time was the work of a guy called Flint McLaughlin, and basically his marketing experiments were basically looking at the way in which the way in which people say yes, whether that's on a landing page or in a sales environment or whatever, Why do people say yes? And all of that information, 10,000 different experiments, has gone into Mech Labs, and therefore you get out some amazing, amazing sort of solutions, whether that's marketing or sales or whatever. But we can go into that another time, and I'm very happy to share that. But the right now, going back to you and the days that you are working for these companies, what's the quirkiest company that you're working for, Kirk, then? You don't have to tell us a name, but the area that they're working.
Quirkiest one. I think the quirk. God, if we should say it. I'm under a strict NDA.
Oh, here we go. You're not working for a corporate. Give us an idea of the kind of broad industry that they're in.
One's an agency.
Okay.
It's in. How shall I describe it? It's in the world that you would perhaps call woo-woo. It's
You're typecasting me now, Kurt, but you did that in the day. But
Graham loves woo-woo.
No, I don't. No. Well, I mean, we can write to them. We can make them feel happy and joyous.
They're a wellness. Let's put wellness. That's they're in that sector, and it's part of it's something that I've had to do a lot of learning to be useful. But it's the same issues of how to grow a business without any salespeople in the organisation. So it's the first time I've stepped in, and there's no one else selling. It's just the whole process and the whole environment needs to be created from scratch.
When you're on the call with them, do you put a fake ponytail on, and because of the woo woo and everything? So do you dress up for the part, Kirk? Is that something part of what you do?
No, I keep a very stony face.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, well,
Graham, before we go down any more dangerous rabbit holes, I think we better wind this up.
I might have just lost a client.
No, I'm sure you haven't. They'll take it in good fun if they're woo-woo. They like being woo-woo. So, Kirk, it's been a real pleasure having you back in my life, at least, and everybody else's. A fractional sales consultancy. And if you want to get in touch with Kirk, then if you can remember what his website is, it's kpd3.co.uk. So you find Kirk, and you might not get into his schedule for a little while, but the point is, he's the kind of guy that might be able to help you out of a bit of a sales problem. And but I don't suppose you come cheap, but at the end of the day, if you can solve a problem, then money shouldn't come into it.
Yeah, if there isn't going to be a return for the company, then I'm not there. It doesn't make any sense either way. No. So there's always a return. There's always an improvement.
Well, on that note, Kurt, we just want to thank you for being on the Next 100 Days podcast.
Thank you very much.
So, Graham, really, really interesting to hear a bit different approach to fractional selling. Kirk, not the salesman going out and selling product and services, but Kirk, the sales leader, coming in and looking at the sales systems, the way sales works in the company, and making real improvements to the sales process. And I think I really do see more parallels to the fractional CFO, where that person wouldn't be getting involved in the transactional world either, than I did in our previous conversation with Mike Malloy about providing fractional sales people.
I think Mike was the kind of person who's just an entrepreneur. He's a brilliant person, and I really love the guy. And he was a fantastic podcaster. Listen to his at the same time as listening to Kirk's. So, but as far as this is concerned, I think Kirk shared so many reasons why it's a good thing. So I think companies are going to maybe roll up, and whether it's on LinkedIn or just having heard this podcast, they might just want to find him.
What happens in the average small company? The CEO, the founder, ends up being the salesman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Possibly he's had a great idea, put a good company together, but never had a day's sales training,
Mm.
hasn't really got the greatest idea of how to do that. As fine as you're starting off, you get a long, long way through pure enthusiasm and energy. But there comes a point where you've got to professionalize the whole process.
Yeah.
And you can't afford to bring in a head of sales full time overnight to do that.
No.
Somebody like Kirk coming along and giving you that advice on a day a week or on a small contract to have a look at things.
Yeah.
Brilliant solution.
I think so as well. I think Kirk's quite. He's always. I've always seen him as being a very professional, capable sales leader, and I think he's one of those people who can lend his hand to, strategic thinking, but process coaching. Great with people, and great golfer, but that's another thing. But he's sort of got this idea from another industry, your industry, and he's brought it into sales. And I have to say, pretty impressed with that. And I'm sure other people might be doing something similar. But Kirk's our man. And if you want to know more about Kirk, then go to kpd3.co.uk and he'll, I'm sure, want to help you out with a free consultancy call. So today, I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.